Don't flatter yourself. You were never even a player.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your boy Jamsys back at it again with some more RTA content because it's a dead game, nothing's new. You've all heard me complain about this before, so yeah. Basically, a bunch of my guild is in Emperor already, so I felt kind of left out. So I guess we're trying to climb and get into Emperor so we can be with the cool kids instead of their lunch table. But yeah, let's see how it goes. It is a lot of the same because the meta hasn't changed. Oh, they actually banned the one unit I have built well in Clilias, so that's kind of an L. And we're up against someone who first pick slams Karina. What is wrong with the meta lately? Anyway, the best way to deal with Karina is just by... I think there's two ways you can deal with her. You can either do such overwhelming damage, you kill her team before she does anything, or you Seaseria to death. And my first two picks kind of reflect that. Lua can technically CC, I guess. Lua's is the best CC because ignore ER, and a lot of units are useless without skills, so it's basically a stun, but also does damage. Though I guess some people can soul burn out of it, but not important. They picked Destina Carmen, which is kind of disgusting. I was considering picking up the DPS Landy, but then I'm not too sure how it would have fared. So I decided to go for a very aggressive start here with Flitica and Commander Pavel, just because I have the option to soul burn it with Steny. And on the last pick, I was thinking of picking a book, but since Sage Ball is actually here, I can't actually do that. I decide to ban out the Sage Ball, and I pick up Celebrated Aramintha here, which is not a unit you see very often on my channel, or at all. But due to the rise in people just bringing in units with naturally high ER and not bringing immunity, Celebrate Aramintha is actually getting a lot of value. I do switch over my Faithless Litica onto Effectiveness just in case there's any stray immunities that I need to take off of people, but yeah, my Silver Blade Aramintha is on 230 effectiveness, so it's a freak amount of effectiveness. That's why if you play tank down teams, you kind of need to draft some disruption. My opponent did with Sage Ball, but since they conceded first turn so readily, they really do let me set the tempo of the match. And here comes the meteor that killed the dinosaurs, ready to kill this snail. But Karina unfortunately does 15% me, but you can see that I landed the stun on Destina. Most Destinas sit at around 260-ish, so the odds are pretty good. She could be better, but I do what my gear allows. Karina does counter me. That really hurt, but that's fine. We're able to proc Commander Pavel. Karina procs, but it doesn't really matter because Karina can't really do anything. I was debating soul burning this, but then I decided I wanted to save the soul burns for Steny, and if I soul burn Commander Pavel, it just means that Karina's gonna focus the Pavel more, and I'd rather she focus my Soul Blade Aramintha because she doesn't have that much value outside of the first turn. And that's another one of her issues, is that I guess you can build her to do some damage with burns, but her whole playstyle can be 15%ed so much that I don't know if it's too worth it. Anyway, I S3 with Steny to ER check, and look at that, his whole team resisted the Spectroteria pushback, which is kind of disgusting, but what can you do? We already know that my Flitica passes the E effectiveness check for most of his units, so we try to go for the blind onto Senya as soon as we can, just so when she does S3, maybe some of her units dodges. Silverblade Aramintha killed herself. Very, very relatable. Me too, queen. Me too. But this match is looking like a pretty easy cleanup. Karina's on cooldown for however many turns. Senya's still crippled by the hit chance down. Surprisingly, my opponent does not go for the Flitica finish here, and I think that's a mistake because it lets my Commander Pavel proc here and get another S2 and do some respectable damage that does help with the cleanup. But in all honesty, I don't think it mattered too much, because if we got lucky and hit Senya here through the anti-crit, or even just cycled around for Steny, like we could have procced Commander Pavel S2 on the wraparound. And to celebrate our re-entry into Emperor, you should really consider subscribing to this channel, leaving a like and a comment. Maybe join my Discord, it's really fun. And yeah, that's it. Back to your regularly scheduled programming of being a aggro monkey. And moving on to the next match. And we're just going to be doing the same thing because it's RTA, unless you're a whale, because I think that's a lot of mistakes people, this is a really common mistake people make in RTA, is that I think to improve, like I feel like this in like League 2 or in other games, like you should really focus on one thing and get really good at it, and that will really help you climb, because being really good at one thing is a lot better than being like okay at other things, okay at a lot of things. And this is different when you're a whale because you just have the gear to be great at everything, which is like can't relate. I picked Clilias. That was like really long-winded way of saying just like be a one trick. They banned Flitica and Lua, so I actually have to pick a second speed opener, and the one of choice for me currently is Amid, just because Amid is like a snail killer, as you guys know. They draft Karina Senya, like holy shit, we'd love to see it. I was thinking about picking Seaseria on another book, but I wasn't too sure what my second book was. Like I'm thinking of maybe moving my Silverblade Aramintha to a book, because I'm getting a new book relatively quickly, but I decided to go with Operator Cigarette just because the barriers from his whole team, the barriers can like potentially screw over his whole team, because SCRL can be one shot, DJB can be one shot. Karina puts up barriers after something dies, so I can push everything back that ignores ER. And I picked Silverblade Aramintha just because, like, you know, this team also looks very like CCable, especially if I ban DJB, because I think out of the two of DN and DJB, I think DJB would have the higher ER. I'm not too sure. We do go first, which is like not that surprising because my opponent didn't really draft that fast, so whatever. We go and try to strip off all the buffs, and we do. We even pass the effectiveness check onto the end, which is quite nice, but if my Clilias passes the effectiveness check, there's no way that Silverblade Aramintha doesn't pass the effectiveness check, so here's hoping we don't get 15%ed. We push up Spectre Tenebria just because, you know, my Silverblade Aramintha has so many rolls into effectiveness that like she doesn't have too much damage outside of the burns, so like I thought it was like kind of a waste. I decided to just hold on to my S3 here and wait until Silverblade Aramintha goes and see what's stunned and what isn't stunned, because by saving my S3 I can potentially stun Senya on like the wraparound if I have to. We unluckily do not land any of our debuffs onto Senya, so unless this Senya is like 300 ER, we just got 15% like 3 times in a row, which is why people don't really use Silverblade Aramintha. However, the rest of his units kind of got CC'd into the next entry, so that's pretty nice. We even get a lucky Champions Trophy, a stun into the Senya, which is quite nice. I'm kind of at a crossroads here. I either need to go for the kill onto DN or I need to go for the kill onto Karina, but I decided that my team has so much CR manipulation that it shouldn't matter, and we go for the S3 onto Karina. This is fine. We just now have to deal with DN before she can cleanse, so we soul burn here with Amid. And because my team just has so much speed and so much lap potential, we're just running circles around the slower player, which is why I was making that point about like, even if you play tank down, you kind of need to draft disruption in a lot of cases, because if you let Cleave has like developed, or Cleave like, or like faster playstyles have developed so much in the last few metas that there's like answers to everything. We also got another lucky crown proc onto this DN, which is like hilarious, but I'm not gonna complain about it. It's justice when it happens to us. And now all that's left really is to kill off the DN, and then we can just infinitely control the Senya down, or just straight up kill her. Unfortunately, DN does survive, but it's fine. Their residual damage from Silverblade Aramintha should allow us to kill. In all honesty, I think I should have soul burned there, but since my team is lapping like 5 miles an hour, it honestly doesn't matter. We're able to go and soul burn into the Senya because Amid has her cooldowns up already because she lapped so fucking hard by being that much faster than the enemy team, which is why a lot of slower players are opting to ban her now. And yeah, my opponent, you know, kind of concedes after he saw that he wasn't able to do anything. I think he got like a total of like 2 turns in. And this might be a controversial opinion, but I actually think Control is like less fun to play against than Cleave, because in Cleave there's like really justice moments where like you get this like lucky counterattack, or like you get a bunch of procs that really help you. But against Control and like cases where you just get CC'd forever, like you literally cannot do anything if you don't draft the right units, which is why like you see me drafting Silverblade Aramintha and like the 4-5 slot instead of like slamming it in the 1-2. And if you didn't notice, my last opponent got like, I think like 2 turns in before they lost, which is pretty sad, but you know, I'm not gonna cry about it. In the next match, we're up against this like Japanese legend player. I actually faced him earlier in the day, but he stole Clilias from me and cleaved me with her, so you already know that I'm gonna return the favor. They pick Auto-Win and they pick Karina, which is like, whatever, boring. I pick Steny and Flitica just because they're very flexible units that really dump onto slower snail-like comps, like call me French because I love eating snails. And we're just waiting. My opponent picks Para. Like, it's good disruption, I guess, if you're confident that it outspeeds my Clilias, but my Clilias is kind of real, so I'm not very afraid of this Para. So my opponent picks like a lot of these like pseudo, I don't know how to describe it, but like it's like very slow and like very CCable. And although A Taiwan does cleanse, A Taiwan does not cleanse enough for the team I just drafted. Like Clilias herself puts a round of debuffs on that allows like Seaseria or Silverblade Aramintha to just permanently CC the entire team. There's a few bans I can do. I can ban Para if I think she's faster, but I think my opponent's going to ban one of my last 4 or 5 picks, and he's going to let my Clilias through. So I decide to let my opponent's Para through and ban Edward because like my team has so many debuffs, and my opponent does end up banning out the Silverblade Aramintha, and I think that's pretty good because Silverblade Aramintha actually matches up decently with Edward because she puts on so many debuffs that the stun sticks, like as long as she doesn't get everything resisted, which is pretty nice. We start the match, we outspeed a unit with like 9 more base speed. Very cash money, very real Clilias gaming. We have to push back the Para, unfortunately, even though I don't really want to. What can you do? Here we go for the Flitica S2 here. It's gonna purge everything off, but we kind of need to proc Seaseria. Flitica gets to come around again, and since all the bombs landed on all the other important targets, we're kind of able to reset A Taiwan here and like kind of take him out of the match per se. And my Seaseria has like 170 effectiveness, so like she better land this shit. Luckily she does. She doesn't get one tapped by the counterattack, which is lucky. And I opt to save my soul burn on Seaseria just so I can cycle back later if I want to, because like what's the point of stunning this A Taiwan when his cooldowns are up and shit. So I decided to go into this Karina, which I honestly in hindsight is a mistake because I think I should have killed off the A Taiwan here, because if you didn't know, Karina actually cannot proc. Her CR jumps, but like you don't get a shield or anything, so I really should have went for the stun here onto A Taiwan, or at least tried to finish him off because it gets rid of mitigation. But you know, what can you do when you are a Cleave Brain player player. Fortunately for us, we luckily did land all our debuffs, even though, you know, it was pretty good odds, to be honest. And Karina actually does get cleansed here because a Taiwan was able to provoke the Sea Lilies into attacking him, and that's why I was thinking, like, maybe in hindsight I should have tried to stun him or go for the kill. Luckily, my Seaseria is able to survive thanks to this Karina not having a, what's that thing called? A defense buff. Which, if you didn't know, defense scaling units do really bad damage unless they have defense buff, because that's just how it works. And we actually go for the kill onto Karina. We land a bomb, and now my opponent literally has no way of winning, because even if Senya does get her S3 off, she's just gonna get stunned and die immediately after. So my opponent, I think, concedes here. Oh no, they're going for it. They're going for the Senya solo, but unless the Senya is like 5 million gear score on lifesteal, I don't think it's happening, and Flitka puts Senya in her place by whipping her into the next century. So that was pretty fun, even though we didn't really get to showcase Roy Mustang at home in Silverblade Aramintha, which is kind of tragic, but you know, we take these wins. We have to get our revenge onto our opponents, who stole Clilias from us earlier in the day when I was recording. I actually went up against Kiln7. He's also an Emperor, which I thought was really fun. And I kind of got cooked when, I'm not going to spoil it, but basically I needed one of his units to not hit my Aiden, and it hit my Aiden and stunned her. So I lost, so that was like very unfun. Anyway, in the next match, I opened up with a Clilias pick, and my opponent picks Poly Amid, which is pretty much saying that I'm going to play aggressively, and I'm like, okay, bet, me too. And I pick Aiden just because Aiden's like a pretty good anchor in a lot of these aggressive comps, or like at least she used to before all these people picked Karina with all their cleave. But since I'm basically guaranteed first turn now because my opponent is too many speed imprints behind, and just like in general, my opponents have faster base speed than his. Well, I guess it's a lot more so for Acid, but my opponent goes for the fire last pick, and I'm forced to ban it because I'm trying to 1v1 a Violet with my comp is going to be very interesting, because Aiden actually does not win against Violet most of the time, or like 55% of the time, so I didn't want to risk it. And yeah, let's go. We obviously do outspeed, but I make a mistake here. I should have checked the CR bar to see how much Ida would have been pushed up, because since I'm kind of blind about what the CR bar is looking like, I'm kind of forced to push back this Poly. But depending on the speed tuning, I would have been able to maybe push back this Karina or like this Amid, and I would have been in a much better position. But hindsight is 2020. What can you do? We just have to keep pushing and press all our buttons. Cop my Ida missing the stun, or missing the crit onto Karina, which is like also very not helpful, but you know, not much I can do about it now. We're able to finish off the Politis, but unfortunately due to the Politis passive, my team wasn't able to cut this Karina. But there aren't too many good targets to S3 here. I think he really needs to go for the S3 onto Wanderer Silk, but my Wanderer Silk is on a tankier build because it's not 300 speed, so it should easily survive. Even if it death broke, I'm pretty sure it would have. I make a ginormous choke here. I was oddly afraid that this Hawk that's like 290 speed was like incredibly tanky, so if I just pressed S2 and pulled Aiden, the Hawk would have died, and then I would have been able to just continuously ram my units into Karina until I won. But due to me making kind of a choke misplay, Amy is able to push up and cleanse the Hawk like 5 million %. It doesn't even matter what my Aiden does here because there's just skill nulls and everything. And I was thinking that maybe my Clilias would cut, but again, Amy pushes by like 50%, and my Clilias isn't like 400 speed. unfortunately. So it's looking like a loss for us because there's no way Ida can actually DPS through Sahak and Karina before she dies. So I decided to throw down the towel here, but the game says you made a mistake, so you're gonna sit here and watch it. And I'm like, okay, bet. So we watch Aiden die, and then we just run away from our badge RTA experience. But you know, it happens. Like, I complained last video about cleavers, or like people who are playing aggressive, not letting other people finish their turn when they're counter cleaving them back. So like, I guess we're just paying our dues to the RT community for playing so aggressively. And in the next match, we get Rhea-san again, which if you didn't remember from like 10 minutes ago in the video, they are a Japanese player who earlier in the day stole my Clilias and cleaved me with her, so I was like very salty about it. And since I first pick again, I was so excited to do it back. They're kind of roping me with like the band selection, which is like whatever. I think they switched up their pre-bans, but I don't think I picked Seaseria, so I guess it's not me. I guess they just lost to Seaseria earlier. But they end up picking Maid Chloe and a Tywin, which I thought was pretty interesting. I guess they didn't like how I CC'd them to death earlier, but I'm gonna make it my mission to do it again to them. So I picked Lua here just because Lua is more oppressive than Flitica into these high-res teams because she can hit everyone at once while Flitica only hits one person. And buying that one turn really sets you up for the rest of the match because you have so much tempo to just run away with the game. I saw them hovering Peyra, but I guess they were I guess they remembered how my Clilias outs better and didn't want to risk the speed RNG or like Peyra just being a dead pick in general. And they pick Senya, and like, here we go, pick your Karina. That's what all these snails do, right? Like, right? You're picking Karina. Like, there's no way you aren't, right? Anyway, while we wait for our opponent to think, I'm thinking about ways to hate crime him, and I think this game will most likely just be. Oh, they actually picked designer a little bit, so they don't want to get CC'd, which is like very understandable. But I decided to pick Commander Pavel here and go for Ida, and so we're doing the other thing. Instead of CCing his team forever, we're just gonna kill him outright with damage. And depending on what my opponent last picks, I'm pretty much just gonna ban it. I think, or if he picks Karina, actually, I think I might go for the ban onto Senya just so my team has a lot easier of a time going for its cleave, or maybe it's gonna be Peyra. If it's Peyra, I kind of have to ban it just in case my opponent bans Clilias, because my Clilias is fast, my Lua is not. Like, my Lua is only like 280 with crit chance to cheese slower teams with Commander Pavel. Which is like a fun thing to do, but not super reliable. My opponent does decide to ban out Lua just because Lua is fair and balanced. As you guys all know, a soul burn, reset, 30% max HP. Just, what was SG thinking when they created this character? But we enter into the match, and this designer a little bit is shockingly high on the CR bar. That's like a 250, 260 designer a little bit, made specifically for anti-cleave. But you're going to see some big brain play. I guess this 8 Tywin's on the higher ER end, but it wouldn't have mattered because I go for the dual attack onto 8 Tywin, cleanse all my opponent's units so they don't have any debuffs on. So this designer a little bit is not very useful. And since my Ida is not effectiveness, there's no way in hell she's stunning like this maid, this 8 Tywin, and there's like a 50% chance to miss on Senya. But the key point is that even if she does stun Senya and designer a little bit, there's not enough debuffs for designer a little bit to proc. And we're able to push up her team pretty safely. We kill the 8 Tywin through splash. Designer a little bit shoots up on the CR bar thanks to his comment, but we just sniper ass out Commander Pavel. And since there's no mitigation in 2 units died, and my Stenny's on pen set with Vigor, we just go for the S3 onto Maid and kill her off. And you could say that's a bit greedy, but I wanted to save the souls just in case onto Senya. Senya's able to go, and by the way, she resisted the Stenny S3. There's no point in soul burning Stenny onto Maid anyway, because it's an ER Senya, because this whole team just has a billion ER, except for like Disheart a little bit, I guess. But it doesn't matter. I don't think this Senya can actually solo my team. I think they need to kill my Commander Pavel here, but we might be able to rob a win casually if my Clilias champion trophy stuns her. But my opponent surprisingly does go for Commander Pavel again, so I just decided to take this opportunity to soul burn Stenny and try to finish off the Senya, but we got a lucky dual attack that crits and kills her. But again, like, Stenny had another attack, Clilias had a dual attack pull, and Commander Pavel potentially had another attack. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching my attempt at playing Control, even though I don't have the gear for it, but like, we did it anyway. And yeah, as always, I'll catch you next time.